Hi, and welcome to Thor's Day Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also hard at work on the new superhero comic WITCHMAN, which was just recently a successfully funded Kickstarter. So this is Thor number 131, They Strike from Space. So after a long multi-part series that dealt with Greek mythology and a little bit of, Asgard mixed in there too. Tales of Asgard, of course, delving deep into mythic realms. And now, as a change of pace, we're getting into some space opera. That's something you'll see with Thor, that it gets into these grooves where there's like a couple different notes that it jumps around from to sort of, keep the book from being monotonous. Not that there was any chance of that happening, but so you get cosmic god stuff, you'll get mythological stuff, you'll get, sci-fi stuff, heavy sci-fi stuff, and then you'll get villain of the week, standard superhero kind of stuff. They strike from space. So here's Thor and Hercules to make this truly feel like an ongoing saga where each chapter has consequences which play out in the next, and this never-ending pageantry and this illusion of like a real alternate universe where these adventures take place. You can't just have like a clean cut, like a fresh break, a fresh start. So we have a couple of pages that wrap up the big Thor and Hercules story and sort of, tie a bow on it. Just a really amazing, enjoyable, epic run. And now we're moving into another phase where, Thor starts, having some space adventures. Script, Smilin' Stan Lee. Art, Jolly Jack Kirby. Inks, Vivacious V. Coletta. Lettering, Affable Artie Simic. Celestial Guided Tours, Honest, Irving Forbush. And you can learn more about the origin of Irving Forbush in my new book, I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And as always, Jack Kirby is not just responsible for art, for making pictures. He's also the co-writer of these stories. Hercules is triumphant. He's still angry at Ares for not lifting a finger to help Hercules. And Thor kind of walks off, through this Olympus, the Greek mythology equivalent to Asgard. And we get to see a sort of, Kirby-esque Mount Olympus. Thor strolls off. He's done everything and more. He's got, no further part to play in this particular story. And now, for the final time, I shall request my regal father's permission to marry Jane Foster. So the ongoing soap opera, that love story between him and Jane Foster is taking another step. But Jane Foster is on a bus trip to who knows where. Even she doesn't know. You've been so quiet, my dear. Where is your destination? I do not know. All I know is it must be very, very far away. And the reason is, this is the command I have been given, and I may not disobey. I cannot disobey the order of Tana Nile. Tana Nile. And now we get to find out Tana Nile's secret. The need for humiliating disguise is ended. Let there then be an end to my mythical human form. And we get a nice Jack Kirby 3-panel transformation sequence. And now we see the true face of Tana Nile. I have learned all I need to know about conditions on this primitive planet called Earth. Thus, I have dutifully fulfilled the first basic task of every space colonizer. And now the time has come to colonize this unsuspecting world and to rule it as my own. The other colonizers have ignored Earth because of its small size and relative unimportance. But it will be a perfect stepping stone for me. Thus, I must contact the command planet at the constellation Rigel. Colonizer Nile, calling command planet. Please acknowledge. I wish to stake a claim. The theories I'd given in previous issues that it seemed to me like Stan and Jack were leading us towards the revelation of like another mythic figure, maybe, a figure from Egyptian mythology, or maybe more Greek mythology, and she was going to be Circe. For whatever reason, I think they called an audible and decided that, okay, we'd sort of done enough myth stuff, especially enough Greek mythology stuff. So let's change it up and introduce like another sort of, big head alien, sort of like let's go in space for a little while. We had our mythology, let's do some sci-fi. There's also, I can't help but wonder if Jack was planning on doing an Egyptian pantheon, if maybe there was something in the back of his mind that was telling him, maybe not create a whole other pantheon of characters that, Marvel can own and exploit ad infinitum. This was before things like really soured, and where he realized that he wasn't going to be getting any kind of profit participation or any kind of, reward beyond his normal page rate for creating, all these, wonderful things that have lasted, beyond his years, have lasted to this day. Not that, creating Tana Nile and the colonizers isn't another, branch of the universe that Jack Kirby, hands over to the Marvel Corporation. But that's just that's speculation on my part. And now we get this, beautiful shot of Rigel, the world of the colonizers, and here they are flying around on these pieces of equipment very similar to the Astro harness, the Astro Force equipment that Orion flies around on in the New Gods. And I think that's been really interesting, doing this Thor's Day comic series and the New Gods Sunday School series simultaneously. I think we're seeing a lot of ways that these two works resonate with each other. And wow, just another sort of showstopper, Kirby organic robo architectural creation, just really amazing stuff. And so they send off a team of inspectors to verify Tana's claim on the world. And here's their spaceship. Again, Kirby is just, designing nonstop. This isn't just some generic spaceship. This is, pretty much unlike anything I've ever seen. And we know Jack had a tendency, sometimes he'd look at, a coffee maker or something in the house and riff on that and turn it into some, amazing sci-fi thing. So I wonder what this is based on. It looks a little bit like maybe a trumpet. And now Odin is playing a game of cosmic chess, really cool looking pieces. Regal Lord, I crave one boon. It concerns the mortal girl. Hold, my mind doth perceive a master stroke. Let there be silence. Is my suit of so little importance? Am I to be denied once more? Ha! The game is mine, so be it. Father, if thine answer be no, then as surely as night doth follow day, still thy tongue, thunder god. Thy love for Jane Foster hath endured for lo these many months. It hath overcome every obstacle. I shall deny it no longer. My lord, you mean you give us leave to be wed? If that be thy wish, my son, then I need not renounce my heritage. God of thunder shall I remain now and forever. And he who saith nay shall feel the wrath of Odin. So, at long last, he's got Odin's permission to marry. He's got his father's permission to get married, and he doesn't have to choose between his Asgardian life and his Earth life. He doesn't have to give up his powers anymore. He can be Thor and be married to Jane Foster. This is a really nice little moment of sort of that grumpy father and giving his approval to his son, and his son overjoyed and kind of playful with his grumpy old dad. And Thor's overjoyed. He runs back. He sprints across the Rainbow Bridge and leaps to Earth. But then a bolt of extraterrestrial force. There is something sorely amiss within the apartment of my beloved. And it's one of those inspectors, and Thor comes back. He crashes through the wall, and there's a standoff. The girl with whom Jane Foster roomed, I sensed thou wert not what thou seemed to be. But no matter. The girl, bring forth the girl. Nay, Thunder God, she is no longer of any consequence. I had sent her away, hoping to cause you to waste precious hours searching for her until my task was completed. For I am a colonizer, and I hereby claim the planet Earth as my own. It is madness. You have not the power. See the power of a colonizer. Bow, God of Thunder. Bow down before your master. I cannot control my limbs. I must obey her command. See how a simple mind thrust can humble the mightiest Asgardian of all. So this is an early prototype version of the anti-life equation. This is, when we see the anti-life equation in Forever People number 8, The Power, this is what it looks like. It's outside control of the mind. Now we're seeing one of those what-if scenes where that is, part of Jack Kirby's bag of tricks at this time, and the little floating head of Tananile telling the story of how she's going to go to the UN and use those powers of persuasion to make everybody agree to her being, the Tana the First, the ruler of planet Earth. Then she's going to put a space lock on the Earth. By means of that irresistible ray, I can effortlessly remove a planet from its natural orbit, taking Earth completely out of the solar system itself, if I so desire. Thus, at my merest whim, I can cause this planet to endure the heat of the 24th quadrant, or I can place the Earth beyond the faintest rays of any sun, causing the start of a new ice age, should I so desire. But I have spoken enough. Now it is time to act. And, Thor begins resisting the force of her mind control, and then they zap him and place him in an unshatterable cage of proton particles. So now he's in, essentially a clear, unbreakable block. And he's being, pushed in sort of a reclined position, kind of like Snow White in her glass coffin, or like, Han Solo on the planet Bespin being pushed around in his carbon freeze, just sort of floating across. And that image of like the carbon freeze block just sort of floating and being, escorted casually does make me wonder if they were referencing this moment in Thor. And now they remove the cloak on the spaceship, load Thor in there. The ship takes off, but Thor says, I have seen and heard enough. The time for observation is past. The moment for battle hath arrived. So he was playing possum, waiting to see where these guys were going to take him. Proton lock, indeed. No such artificial device can long restrain the son of Odin. Tananile activates the space lock, which comes from the distant Rigel. It shoots it across, space and time, like those space-spanning rays that we saw in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And we have one of these, Kirby collages. And I mean, I've seen these collages, the original art in color. They're really beautiful. But the reproduction at this time that Marvel was doing and the reproduction that DC was doing just didn't do them any justice. So they would print, very dark and very muddy. And so while it does add some visual interest and some variety, it's not as much fun as looking at a panel of like Jack Kirby drawn art. But I'm telling you, the originals are great. And maybe someday there'll be some sort of restoration project where they restore, where you get something closer to the original art of these collages in these books. In Hunger Dogs, we finally got really beautiful full color reproduction of a Kirby collage, and the results are pretty impressive. So the space lock is around the Earth. Thor goes into battle with these inspectors, and despite their thin arms and legs, they're no pushovers. In fact, how can you fight the power of unlimited density? At maximum density, a blow from an inspector is equal to the force of a cosmic tornado. So, Thor's met his match here, but he puts in that extra bit of oomph and, knocks them unconscious. And now he's in this spaceship on his way towards a rendezvous with Rigel. Though it be unthinkable, if I should fail, then Jane and all mankind are truly doomed. So yeah, we have a high stakes thing. The Earth is in the balance. The whole planet could be, thrown into the sun or to a distant galaxy. So Thor's got to, settle this hash on the planet Rigel. So we've completely, we were so invested in this Hercules story through the power of diversion, and we've sort of segued, and closed the book on that story. It's not like we left it hanging. We sort of closed the book on that Hercules story quite beautifully, and now we're going into like a whole new area that just seems really exciting and fresh, and we'll see just how much that's true in the coming issues. the Warlock's Eye. So we have a continuation of this ongoing Tales of Asgard story. Lee wrote it, Kirby drew it, Coletta inked it, Simic lettered it. No wonder it's another magnificent Marvel masterwork. So there's that phrase, Marvel masterwork, which ends up becoming, an actual literal book, the collections of these old comics when I was a kid, were in the Marvel masterworks format. Having defeated Harokin in fair battle, mighty Thor impersonates the barbarian chieftain, thus hoping to gain possession of the enchanted Warlock's Eye from Harokin's guards. So Thor's pretending to be Harokin. He put some soot in his hair and to make his hair dark like Harokin's, and he's wrapped himself up in his cape to look like a cloak. And Volstagg is hiding. And then a nice bit of visual comedy. He, smashes this barrel that he's in to get out. And Thor has given the command for his underlings to fetch the Warlock's Eye. So they're going to get it. And Volstagg witnesses this. And he, fights them with his belly, like a moment of, cool heroism, and Volstagg fighting in his own way that tells us a lot about the character and his humor and just really nice moment, really star-making moment for Volstagg. These guys are none too pleased, looking very ferocious and fierce. They were introduced in the previous issue. But Volstagg grabs the Warlock's Eye and zaps them with it. The eye, it opens. Beware the stun blast. Beware. He zaps the rest of the army, and he's got the Warlock's Eye. It's a really beautiful visual. And he's getting ready to charge it up again and zap who he thinks is Harokin. But he reveals himself to be Thor, and he tells him to hand over the Warlock's Eye, which Volstagg gladly does, and Thor holds it above his head, and we see this is what it looks like when it's closed. This is what it looks like when it's open, threatening to open it and unleash it on these guys. I really like the silhouette work here, the deep shadow on Thor. None will dare raise sword against him who holds the Warlock's Eye. The cause now is won. But what now becomes of Harokin? Next issue, the Dark Horse of Death. So very, really interesting little tease here about the Dark Horse of Death. Is Harokin going to die? Next issue's Tales of Asgard is really interesting, delves deep into mythological territory, delves deep into a theme that Kirby keeps returning to about death and what's the meaning of death and preparations for death and funeral rites and rituals and the importance of these things. Really interesting stuff. So I hope to join you next time for that. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also hard at work on my new superhero comic, WITCHMAN, which was recently successfully funded in its Kickstarter campaign. I'll see you next time for Thursday Comics.